Let's talk about the marathon. Just last weekend, Kenyans were doing their thing in Chicago. Not just those that got to the podium, other Kenyans as well. I actually know some Kenyans who traveled specifically to participate in the Chicago Marathon. And they've been all over social media, just showing their participation and saying, you know what, I came, I did, conquered, got the medal,
got the t-shirt,
coming back home. The Nairobi Marathon is one that has been known to have take place for a number of years now, sponsored by Standard Chartered. So it's the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. And last year, because of COVID-19, because of everything that we did not know what was happening in the world, we also could not just tell ourselves to go and run in the marathon. So it didn't happen. Just the same way, many sporting events didn't take place last year. But this year, the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon is back. And the chairman of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, we don't deal with it. Chairman is here. He is Peter Getao, joins us in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you, Peter, in the studio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. Now, let's start with the dates. When is the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon this year?
So the Standard Nairobi Marathon this year is on the 31st October. We've got a hybrid format this year. So 31st October is the physical run. That's the one where people get together at one spot and run through the route. And the week of 25th to 31st of October, we'll have the virtual marathon. The virtual marathon allows you to run anywhere. It allows you to use technology to record your run. And once done, you upload your result on the portal and participate in the event. So 2 formats this year, Eric, different from the past.
Sounds brilliant. It sounds brilliant. You'll explain to us the details as we go on, but let's just go back into the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. How many years it's taken place now, and why Standard Chartered decided to support this marathon, and what happens?
Yeah. So this year will be the 18th edition. We've had the marathon since 2003. The marathon helps us do 2 things. One, helps us connect with the community and create a running culture. Kenya, we are known for running. So when we were choosing where to place a marathon, Kenya and Nairobi was a good choice. So that was one of the reasons. And then the second reason is we use the funds that we collect in the marathon for supporting the community and our community engagement programs. Up to 2018, we used to run Seeing is Believing, which was about preventable blindness. So we did a lot of work on that. We felt we had achieved. And then we moved to what we call now Future Makers. Future Makers is focused on youth. The idea is to facilitate the youth with ways to learn, earn, and grow through education, entrepreneurship, and employability. So all the funds that we use in the marathon go to those initiatives. And we also think it's a good way to have fun. We think we can present an opportunity for elite athletes to use their times in this marathon to qualify for international races, so build careers. We allow recreational runners a time and a route where they can run and improve their performance. And then maybe people who don't run that often have a chance to come and have fun with their families.
Create an entire buzz around running, what we do. Okay. How many kilometers do you have? How many different races?
So for the physical marathon, we have 4 races. We have the full marathon, which is 42 kilometers, the half, which is 21. We have the half marathon wheelchair race, which is also 21 kilometers, and then we have the 10 kilometers. For the virtual marathon, we also have a 5-kilometer fund race. So when you register for the virtual marathon, you can opt for the 5 kilometers one as well.
Did you observe that when he mentioned the 5 kilometers, he looked at me? Suggestive, isn't it?
Recreational runners.
Recreational.
Actually, I'm glad he looked at me because I'm going to ask, are we allowed to walk?
Yes, you're allowed to walk. Yes, you're allowed to walk.
See, You can look at me again. 5 kilometers.
5 kilometer recreation.
Run walk.
Run, walk,
Run walk.
dog walk.
Right. So, I mean, we've always seen the Nairobi Marathon as unique for some of the things that you've talked about, because we see the direct benefactors of this marathon having lives changed. I mean, I believe there was one year where you actually had some of the folks who had benefited from previous marathons coming out and sharing their story in improved sight, and reversed sight. So it's unique in that sense that all proceeds then, or at least most of the proceeds then, go towards that. Is it always going to be that you're looking at having the Nairobi Marathon where then it impacts life? Obviously, having chosen the sight sector to do this, is it always going to be that way? And will you see then more impact this year, where we had a year where we were not able to do anything because of global circumstances, but then now saying, all right, revamped, using new innovation, virtual, for example, but the end goal always being to impact life?
Yeah, I think we are in a community, and we want to make sure that we make a difference in our community. So the proceeds of the marathon will always go towards our community programs. We've moved from the seeing is believing, the eyesight. We've now moved to seeing how we can engage youth and take them through the journey of learning, earning, and growing. So what we did last year we didn't have a marathon, but some of the money that we had, we still directed it into some programs. So one area which we are very proud of is we spoke to Athletics Kenya and identified a need with athletes. Since last year, there were hardly any events, and a lot of athletes actually earn an income from the events. We had an intervention where we went across 7 counties. We worked with about 500 athletes and spent time with them on business and entrepreneurial skills. And the reason we did that is that we felt that sometimes when athletes earn from events, they may not have the skills to really convert that money into something that's sustainable for them and their families. So we will do interventions like that. We have an intervention with young girls. We call it the Goals program, where we again facilitate them to start small businesses. Do a lot of education around social education for young girls. So absolutely, the proceeds will always go to these community programs.
Okay. Now, this year, obviously with the virtual innovation being brought in, how exactly will this work out? So you're saying that if I'm doing 5 kilometers, for example, having the opportunity to run 1 kilometer today on the 25th, I can do another 1 kilometer on the 26th kind of thing, or must I do the whole 5 and then upload it? If you're giving me 6 days, I mean, how exactly is this going to work?
I think that's a brilliant question. So the way the virtual run works and the way we are using technology is, so once you register for the marathon, the next instruction is to download Strava. So we are working with Strava. Strava, because it's very popular across different people in sports. So we thought it's a platform that at least will have a good following. So you download Strava on your phone. Then you choose a day. Unfortunately, you can't run, for example, 42 kilometers over 6 days. We haven't reached there yet. I wish we could do that. Then I would probably also do that. So once you choose the day that you want to do your run, then that day is when you say do your 5 kilometers. When you do your 5 kilometers and it's recorded on Strava, you'll then go and upload it onto the marathon portal. So we've got a portal where you can upload your time, and that records that you've completed. You'll get a certificate of participation, and you'll see yourself on the leaderboard. It will tell you, you completed this race, and this is where you are. So you can do it more than once. So you can say it's between 25th and
best
31st.
of 5.
And then you take the best. You take the best of your time and upload it.
And then do you get the certificate and medal? Are they sent to you?
Yeah. So we've changed our registration slightly because typically we would give the medals at the end of the race. So for the physical run, yes, the medals will be given at the end of the race. For the virtual run, when you register, you get a T-shirt you get a draw bag that you can use when you're running, and you get your medal. So you get your medal at registration. When you complete is when you get a certificate. So that then puts in the record as having participated in the marathon.
Do you categorize these races to consider some of your senior citizens? As in, I see you smile, as in considering those who are have a certain chronological advantage, say over the age of 50.
So they're in their own
60.
They're in their own category. So even in the leaderboard, we're talking
Yes.
about Class C runners who did this race. You then are performing very well.
By the same token, people who are even younger.
Yeah.
For instance, you may get an enthusiastic 13-year-old who wants to run. Do you take this into consideration?
At the moment, we don't, but it is something. So what has happened when the marathons were cancelled and a lot of virtual races started, also qualifications for physical marathons became more, how do I put it, more complex. So you'll see there are races that do that. And that's something we want to move to. So for example, if we want a qualification time for a race, then we should be able to say, for this age category, this is a qualification time, and for this age category, this is it. So at the moment, we are not doing it, but we that's the direction we're headed. We are hoping, you may be a 60-year-old who's very fit, so you can do maybe 10 kilometers or 21, or you may not be that fit, so you go for 5. So we're hoping the different race distances cater for that at the moment. But it's something that we are looking into going forward.
But it's commendable that you actually have one for wheelchairs.
Yes.
No, that is completely commendable.
Yes.
So
what previous Nairobi marathons have taken place along Uhuru Highway. We no longer have that road. It's a construction site.
Correct.
So this year, where is the physical run going to take place?
The physical run will be on the Southern Bypass. So we will be assembling at the Carnival Grounds. That will be the start and the finish. And then we run up Southern Bypass. So it depends on the distance. So it's marked for different distances, 10, 21, and 42. But the extreme point, one extreme point is the ICD, and the other extreme point is Ngong Road interchange. So I think it's an exciting route. I mean, there is at some point, as we've been doing the planning, you actually run next to the national park.
Yeah.
You see some. So we are hoping to create a different flavor, but that is where the run will be this year.
And then this one now has an incline along Ngong Forest as you go up.
Yes, it does.
Way.
It does.
It's going to be
And the
nice and
reverse when you're
challenging.
coming
And then
down.
the reverse as you're coming down again.
Yes.
So the road will have to be closed for some hours then on the day
Yes.
for
Yes.
all motorized traffic. Interesting. 31st of October, the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon is taking place. We have in studio with us Peter Getao, who's the chairman of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. He's telling us how they're going to organize the marathon this year. So already registration is taking place for the marathon, and you register by going to the portal. What is this portal?
NairobiMarathon.com.
Okay.
It's a website for the marathon. You have the choice for registering for the virtual marathon there. For the physical marathon, you send an email because we've got to check qualification time. The physical marathon has a pre-qualified time to secretariat@nairobimarathon.com.
Okay.
So the details are on the website.
When we talk about modern day communication, we forget. Do you have a post office box?
Yes, we do.
Somebody want to post a letter to you.
We do have. There is a phone number as well. Hopefully that will bridge the gap.
Yes, that is right.
How do you receive this merchandise once you register? The T-shirt, the drawback, the medal?
We have a kit collection at the KICC.
Okay.
For a lot of the runners will be Nairobi runners. That's where we'll be doing the kit collection. And then we also are dispatching kits to our branches across the country.
Okay.
We are conscious that someone may be wanting to run from Kisumu.
Yeah.
So our Kisumu branch will have kits. Mombasa branch will have kits, etc. So those are the two areas. On the website,
I was hoping there was
Yeah.
going to be like, a door-to-door delivery. Nowadays with the borders and the couriers, so you register and then you put the details. You're told where to go and collect. So if I'm running and there's no Standard in my neighborhood, I have to go to the next Standard branch to collect this.
Yes.
I'm just throwing
Yes,
the
for
spanner
now-
in the
for
works
now,
there because
yes.
I'm thinking, oh, you want me to run to the branch? It's part of the preparation for.
This man clearly doesn't have an account with Standard Chartered.
I do actually. I've had it for over 25 years.
That's why you have a problem with it.
That's the problem.
Where is it exactly in this country?
Where? What? My branch, Kenyatta Avenue.
Okay. Well done.
Close to
Understand,
KICC.
So you shouldn't have a problem picking up your kit.
I don't want to go to town.
So, even as you talked about how things have changed, and I'm going back to then impact here, and previously when it was SITE, and we're saying like now programs for the young people, learning, earning, and growing. How exactly will this be done? And I'm looking at after the marathon now, and all of this has been collected. People have participated, and the end goal is, apart from having people run for health and things like that, in the impact stage, how exactly will this happen? Because there are a myriad of youth programs in the country today. Are you going to plug into existing programs? Are you going to start a new one? How exactly would it play out? And then who then would be the benefactors? With SITE, it was easy. You identify a hospital. There are people who need help. They get a needed surgery. They get on treatment. In this case, are you plugging into existing ones, creating a new one? How exactly would this work?
What we've experienced over time is the power of partnerships. So for example, we do have a program we run with Strathmore on women in technology. So we use the fact that they've got a good learning facility where we can do that. For the Gold program, we use RD Foundation, who work a lot with girls. So it's all about finding the right partners and then working with them. For the athletes I mentioned earlier, we use the Kip Keino Foundation because they are tapped into the coaches and the trainers and the people on the ground. So we try as much as possible to identify partners who are like-minded and who we can work through.
All right. Let's continue the conversation after this quick break. 26 minutes after 8. We are live on KTN Home on SpiceFM and online. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, discussing the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon 2021. Or are you calling it 2020? Like everybody else?
2021.
Okay. No, everybody else will just be calling this year's things 2020. Okay. And Peter Getao, the chairman of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, is here with us in the studio telling us about this year's race. Good morning. We'll be back shortly. This is the Situation Room. In the room this morning is Eric Latif, Nduoko, CT Muga, and Peter Getao, chairman of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. This year's marathon is taking place on the 31st of October in Nairobi, and you can register to participate at nairobimarathon.com. Just log on to nairobimarathon.com. This year also, Peter is telling us there is some technological advancement in keeping in line with the global and pivoting and all those words that we've been using during this time for COVID. This year's Nairobi Marathon is also being run virtually. So the virtual marathon takes place between the 25th and the 31st of October. What you do is once you go to the portal, nairobimarathon.com, register. You can register and then select the race that you want to do, whether it's 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 21 kilometers, or 42 kilometers. Even the virtual one, we have the wheelchair one as well.
And not on the virtual one.
Okay, not on the virtual.
Not on the virtual one.
So 5, 10, 21, 42, register, then select a day that you want to do this. Well, you'll be told to download the app, and then you have the app with you. Once you, as you run, it times you, and then you log on the time on the portal, and it ranks you, and then you know how you've done.
Yes.
And thereafter you shall receive a certificate. That's this one, virtual, and I like the idea. I think it's brilliant. But looking back at what we were discussing just before we took the break, and this is the proceeds that come out of every year's Nairobi Marathon. 18th edition taking place this year. The previous 17 editions, how much would you say has been able to be has been raised by the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon? And can you talk about the impact of what you've seen in the past 17 years?
We've raised about 230 million shillings over the period that we've had the marathon. We started small. Our first race, I remember, we had about 4,000 participants, and with time, I guess with the confidence and with the support of Kenyans, the marathon has grown, and we are very grateful for that. So for the first 15 years, we used an intervention. We had an intervention on Seeing is Believing. It really transformed quite a number of lives. And the way we tried to conclude it was to make it sustainable. So we upgraded a number of hospitals. We did a lot of training for teachers. What we discovered is that often issues of eyesight are identified when people are children, and teachers are a key part of that. So we developed an app called Peak and trained a lot of teachers on how to use the app to check children's eyesight. So interventions which were medical, surgeries, built up capacity in hospitals, training, plus left something in the form of an app. We reached our target globally on that. So we still do it, but we don't do it as our main community initiative. So in 2018, we pivoted to Future Makers because we thought there is an opportunity to reduce inequality. Standard Chartered as a group is operational in about 70 countries across the world, all the way from Asia to the US. So, and a lot of our markets are third world, in the third world. So we've got a lot of markets in Asia and Africa and even in the Middle East. So there's a big opportunity for us as a bank working with partners to transform the life of youth and use that to transform the community. So that in a nutshell is our path towards community interventions. In the last 12 months, so the money that was raised in 2019, which we used in 2020, I do have some statistics. So for example, we trained over 3,700 students using Light for the World. So Light for the World brings together university students, and we did things to do with how do you prepare for an interview, how do you write a CV, what are career options, and things like that. So helping them get ready for the employment market. I talked earlier about Gold Girls. So Gold Girls, in the last 12 months, we've had sessions with about 5,000 of them on different things: sexual education, financial education, social skills, and also small businesses, how to run small businesses. I'd mentioned the athletes that we trained, the 500 on not starting really, but how to run a successful business, entrepreneurial skills. So every year in the annual report of the company, we do list the things that we've done to keep ourselves accountable also for the money that we are collecting in the marathon.
So I assume that this also falls under the sustainability arm of Standard Chartered globally. This is among the things that you're doing for sustainability. I want to talk about what you've just said, supporting the athletes on what to do with the proceeds of their winnings from races. How many have you worked with, and what kind of what is your reading with dealing with the artists? Where are the gaps? What's their strong point, and what are the most glaring weak points, and how do you bridge that gap?
So when we worked with Kipkeino Foundation to Identify Athletes, and we worked with a group called SME Support Center. So the key thing we found was just the ability of thinking through a business and making it sustainable. So for example, it was about a 2-day program. So at the beginning, you sort of test where the athletes are in terms of mentally. What would they do if they had earnings? And at that point, a lot would say, okay, I'll invest in this business. I'll do a car wash. I'll do a wholesale shop. I'll do so very common businesses that were there around the community.
Yeah.
And we drove through a process of thinking, okay, if you want to have this business, what is your product? What will differentiate you? How will you get your capital? So we took them through about eight or so steps in how to run a business. So to answer your question, the biggest need was to have those skills on how to sustainably run a business. I think I attended one of the sessions in Nyahururu, and I was amazed at the number of ideas that were out there.
Yeah.
And once the athletes were taken through that thought process, the way they actually changed their business plans to become something that can actually work. So that I see is the biggest need. If I get winnings and I want to invest in a business, that's fine. But how do I make sure that I'm investing in the right business that is relevant, that's meeting a need, and is sustainable?
But the greatest assumption here is that everybody has their entrepreneurial side to them.
Yes.
And I'm just sitting there and thinking, okay, so everybody always will think of, I've made some money, so let me start a business.
Yes.
But how about opening up that mindset and saying, I've made money, I'm good at running, I am running in this particular race, I'm going into the Diamond League, I'm going into the international marathons, I am making the money. Instead of considering now going back to start a car wash or to start, something, how about others, like putting the money in a fund and let fund managers manage my fund, and then I'll do what I do and let somebody else manage this and invest, because we're talking about people who are making hundreds of thousands into millions and to hundreds of millions of shillings. Oh, that's
But I agree with you, Eric, and we also gave that awareness to the athletes. I think and through the bank we were able to explain that we can help you invest in bonds, in mutual funds, etc. So you can open an account with the bank and invest in that. That option was there. And I agree with you. Sometimes it's good to focus on what you're good at. If you're good at running and you can run, and and that's what you want to do.
Stick to it.
But the reality, Eric, is people will always want to have that. Maybe you have some cash as an emergency fund, and you've put it in that investment, and you'll also want to have a side hustle. So we were working to give people the knowledge in both. But I agree with you. I think the investment, invest in your funds in other types of investments other than businesses is also a good option.
I'm coming from the point of, I'm thinking of the athletes.
Yes.
Guy goes, runs, comes back here with 100 million shillings.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
he's not going to start thinking of how to put up a posho meal.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
Clearly there's some kind of guidance.
show them how to open offshore
there's guidance
accounts.
that's needed in terms of options then that they can be given. What then do you do with this?
Yes.
Because we're going to have, if we're just looking at this as an example, there are going to be people who will have winnings thereafter. So in as much as we're looking at impactful projects, like for the youth with this, then also for those who will win, who may have never won this kind of money before. Well, okay, so let's give you a few suggestions about what you can do, because guess what? Standard Chartered is in the business.
Absolutely.
Of money.
Absolutely. We open the
so-
accounts. Yes, you're right. Sorry. interrupt.
When you're talking about how it is one ought to manage money, it's something that perhaps banks should consider alongside the ease with which we can now open accounts. Because there is the assumption that when somebody opens an account, they know how to manage money. Most of us don't. We know that you get the money, you plan for a few basic things, essentially you spend it. Investment, you buy a plot.
Yep.
If you're in a setup where people talk about a SACCO and how to mortgage, you'll get a mortgage.
Yes.
Okay? If someone tells you there are things called shares you can buy, you'll ask where exactly do you go
which
to
one?
buy them. You'll be told, you say, okay, you'll go and buy shares. But understanding money as a commodity and understanding its uses and understanding the best use you can put it to is something most of us are ignorant about. And banks who are experts in it help us open those accounts but the management of this resource. For instance, one of the biggest problems many of our banks have is a small issue of something they call bad loans. A lot of the times, it has to do with people who have been lent money, their understanding of how they relate to the bank as opposed to how the bank views them. If the bank took the time to, as you open the account, explain, this COVID period, I've seen that change where banks actually talk to you. They say, come, let's talk. Okay? Not those rude letters that banks used to send once upon a time. You look at the letter, you go into hiding immediately. Okay? Now, that would help a great deal more. Yes, because then you would have an informed client, an informed partner. Yes.
I absolutely agree. I think banking has changed generally, and financial management has changed generally. And one of the key things that Standard Chartered does is financial education for its clients. So you're right. You'll find that we and that is why we thought this program was important for the athletes. We sort of said, look, if this is a need and we do this business, how can we use the skills we have to really make an impact on society? So today, when you're borrowing money, the conversation with your lender is completely different. People want to understand the business that you're doing. How will you generate the cash flow to pay off your loan, rather than give me a security for this lending?
Yeah.
I think I heard you guys earlier talking about the Credit Reference Bureau and those things. So all those things that are coming together are giving us a platform where we can risk rate clients properly and lend them money to their needs and to their ability to pay. So it stops being about chasing bad. There will be bad loans because sometimes economic circumstances create those issues. But if we can create the intervention early so that when you get the money, you use it in a sustainable manner, then it's a win-win.
I'm a great proponent for some of these things starting very early in life. The reason is I have a teaching background. And even as we have this conversation, having a conversation of this nature with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development isn't a bad thing. The earlier one starts understanding money, the better. So by the time somebody thinks of going to some of these tertiary institutions and so forth, you already have an understanding. When you become of age and you can open an account, you have an understanding.
Yes.
See, I'm coming from a background where the accounts we used to have were post office banking accounts. They were very useful, but if you sent money to a rural place, that particular post office had to wait until somebody had deposited money for them to pay you. It worked, yes, but again, modern times require for modern solutions. Yes. Instead of a bank account holder being an account holder, if they're a partner, as you say correctly, it's a win-win for everybody. Yes. And the earlier you start nurturing this client, the better. Yes.
Financial education for the youth.
Yes.
What is the Future Makers program about?
So Future Makers is what we've been talking about. It's about creating, reducing inequality and basically focusing on the youth. It's using education, using employability and entrepreneurship to actually uplift the living standards of the youth.
So what age
That's what
bracket
it's
are you
about.
dealing with? Are you dealing with adolescents in high school or college
Adolescents,
students?
yes, adolescents, college students, all the way to young adults.
Is there like a transitional program where you started with the adolescents and then you're seeing them graduate into going to college, going into being, young adults seeking employment, and what they start doing? Or do you just deal with, if I'm dealing with this cohort who are adolescents, next time I'm going to meet with them is when they're bringing money to the bank?
I wouldn't say there is that mapped transition as yet because we've just started. So what we've been trying to do is to build capacity with the right partner. So who can we use on adolescents? who can we use for university students, who can we use for young entrepreneurs or people starting up employment. So at the moment we've bucketed them across. But when you look at some of our interventions that we've had for some time, like the Women in Technology program we ran with Strathmore, that includes incubation of a business. So the business is incubated, and we work with the business going forward. We even lend the business money once it reaches that stage of growth. So it's developing to that kind of, that would be the ideal, where you've got this transition where someone you've started with as an adolescent, you can see them transitioning all the way to their work.
What does this do for Standard Chartered? What does it do for the institution? This entire marathon, what does it do? Because usually, before we look at advertising and say, okay, well, X number of people will open accounts across the country, but what does this do in terms of longevity of purpose? I mean, what are we looking at here?
So I think it goes back to why we started, and we keep reflecting on the reason we started the marathon and the objectives. So one, and that has come up a lot, it's become very apparent during COVID, is wellness. So we believe if we can create a culture of running, keeping fit, etc., and that contributes to the wellness of the community, then we are giving back. And two is the Future Makers program. If we are able to use all these proceeds to have those interventions, then again we have an impact on the community. It is primarily just for the community engagement. We believe as a bank we work within a community, and we need to actually contribute to that community's future. So that's a focus. That's a focus. Of course, if we're able to run a marathon, Standard Chartered marathon in Nairobi, and that day everyone is wearing our T-shirt, then that adds
good branding.
That adds to the branding. But it really is to get that our community engaged.
Okay. Let's talk about this, the virtual run that's going to be taking place between the 25th and the 31st. So you go, you register, you choose the race that you want to participate in, 5, 10, 21, 42. And then you choose a date that you want to run, wherever you are, whether in the country or outside the country.
Yes.
And then you run and you log in your time.
Yes.
I think this is a brilliant idea. Can it be sustained throughout the year? In such a way that there's a build-up towards, there's a whole conversation about the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon through the year. There's what you're doing as you build up to it. People have been running on a daily basis. I've done 5. I'm improving on my time. And as you're doing all that, as you're logging it in, there's a community somewhere that is growing. It works very well with the branding.
Meaning you can start with that 5, and over time, as you get fitter, you may actually get to 10.
Yep.
You may get to the next stage.
And then there's the sustained impact of encouraging people to be fit, to run. You're creating that community. So it's not just waiting until October to participate in a marathon. It's throughout, and there's what you're building up towards.
I think you've read our mind, Eric. I think that is where we want to get to. So we used to be asked questions a lot in our previous format. We do the marathon in October, end of October.
Yeah.
Then we don't hear from you guys for some time. then you come back in June.
Register.
So we are changing that with technology. So we've got, like in the Strava, we've got a group called the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon Group, and we've started putting information on that group. So information on nutrition, tips from people who train athletes. We've got a number of them that we're working with this year. Challenges. We've run 2 challenges so far. Amazing. I think one challenge we had 45,000 people registered. About 42,000 were from outside Kenya.
Wow.
We had people running in Australia and in the challenge, and a lot of that challenge, when we asked why was it so popular, it was someone saying, I want to compete with a Kenyan,
Yeah.
I want to compete with these guys.
Yeah.
So the technology gives us an amazing platform to have a continuous conversation and build that culture. I think, again, what COVID has made us all reflect on is wellness. So how do we also use these platforms to engage on mental wellness? How do we use these platforms to engage on financial education?
Yeah.
So that is precisely what we would like to do. And we are looking for a lot of support to create awareness, because the biggest issue now, as you've said, the virtual marathon is very exciting.
Yeah.
But it takes time for to be understood. Someone asked me once, does that mean I go on Zoom and what do I do? Do I run on a treadmill?
running.
Do I run on a treadmill? So it's taking time. It's taking time for it to land. But I think if we land it properly with support, we're working a lot with the running clubs and the running communities in Kenya. If we get that understanding, then we even democratize the marathon. So you can actually run a marathon.
The Nairobi marathon from Tokyo.
And you can have people running from Tokyo. Yeah.
Fantastic. Brilliant idea. Peter, as we come to the conclusion of the conversation, what's the one message that you'd like to pass on to our audience, people who are listening today, people who maybe participated in a previous marathon or have never participated in a previous marathon?
Yeah. I would say, in summary, there are three reasons we see people participating in the marathon. One is as professional athletes or as recreational runners. Two is to have fun. And the third is to contribute to a cause. I would encourage everyone to register for this year's marathon. We support a great cause. It's a great opportunity to come together, family, friends. It's a great opportunity also to win some money for the professional athletes. Our call in this year's marathon, after the challenges we had with COVID, is run as one. So I encourage everyone to register, and we run as one.
Who are the big names that you're targeting for this year? The elite runners.
I'm afraid, Eric, at the moment I don't have that information.
Okay.
We are still working with Athletics Kenya, but we do plan to have a press conference just before the marathon to announce elite runners.
That'll be a good one. Remember, Nairobi Marathon should be at par with the others,
Right.
the
Yes,
international
great
majors.
city.
We have the Chicago, we've got the Berlin, London, Boston, right? And the Nairobi Marathon. I mean, we are the home of marathon. So register and participate in this year's Standard Charter Nairobi Marathon. Just go on to nairobimarathon.com. You will be able to register either for the physical marathon or the virtual one. The physical one, there is 10, 21, 42 kilometers and also 21 wheelchair race. For the virtual, there is 5, 10, 21 and 42. And it takes place between the 25th and the 31st. The physical marathon will be on the 31st of October, starting at the Carnival Grounds, running along the Southern Bypass. Peter, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
And we look forward to, we're starting to
Recreational.
practice.
Yes, the 2-kilometer race.
Thank you very much.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues into the next hour. You've been live on KTN Home, but the conversation continues on SpiceFM. You can switch over to Spice on 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, Nyeri 90.9.